is powerful. So water as an essential nutrient. This is also something very interesting to ponder. We think about, well, we need to get vitamin C to help support repair of collagen. Vitamin D is an antiviral, or vitamin D will help support testosterone levels and other hormone levels. Magnesium is essential to over 300 different biochemical reactions in the body. So we think about taking supplements and their importance in the body, but we don't often think of water as an essential nutrient. But here it is right here. I would just highlight this. It acts as a, come on, go off there. It acts as a building material, as a solvent. So in other words, we can dissolve biochemicals into water and carry them into the cell. Water is the place where reactions occur in the cell and as a reactant itself. So there's hydrogen and oxygen in the cell. Of course, we talked about it as being a carrier for nutrients. And of course, we use water to remove waste products from the cell. Of course, also thermoregulation. So during the summer, when our bodies start to overheat, we sweat to regulate our body temperature. That's a survival mechanism, and we can't do that if we're not hydrated properly. And even water as a lubricant and a shock absorber. Okay, now here's the surprise that you'll find extremely interesting. And I also want to talk to you about DNA itself. But first, let's talk about proteins. So in biology, the shape of cells, the shape of structures are an indicator of its function. And we did a study on SARS-CoV-2. We did a study on the mRNA vaccines. And one of the things that we saw that was shocking was that the mRNA vaccines were changing the shape of the white blood cells, of the immune cells in the body. So we drew the conclusion, and this was the conclusion of a medical doctor that is a forensic medical scientist, that the mRNA vaccines were suppressing immune activity in the body. I think that's probably a kind way to say it. So when we see a change in shape of a cell or structure, that is an indicator of a change in function. We can see this on the macro level and also on the micro level. So when we look at the eyes, we look at the cones and rods in the eyes, that's an indicator of what those structures are going to be doing in the body. And we could say the same thing about the tissue in the lungs, the heart, and so forth. Well, if we look at proteins, here's maybe the surprising thing, is that when the body goes into a state of dehydration, the shape of the protein will change. And in effect, it goes into an inactive state. You're hydrated properly. Now this changes shape again. And now the protein is in, let's call it, an active state. So why would this be important? Well, let's say that you're an athlete, or let's say that you're an individual that wants to build muscle and stay strong and healthy, and you're not getting the results that you want in the gym. You might be dehydrated. You might be, from this lack of drinking enough water, you may be inhibiting your body's ability to build new muscle tissue. Interestingly enough, when we do our studies on our water machine, and here's one of the studies that we just had published recently. This was done by Doctors Caitlin and Melinda Connor. One of the things that we found in the study is that when people drink this water, pull this up, you can see there's a ton of data here. Here we go. These are charts of different amino acids. So that's what we're looking for anyway. I'll just highlight that one specific data point, and we'll go down over here. But what we see, for example, is with the amino acid valine, synthesis of valine increases to statistical significance when you drink this water. And what's important about valine? Valine is one of the branch chain amino acids, along with leucine and isoleucine, and those amino acids are involved in muscle protein synthesis. We can also see that leucine nearly hit significance. A later study, we found that it did. This is simply to say you drink our water and you give your body the ability to synthesize not only new muscle tissue, but also collagen as well, along with other things. Okay. All right. So enough with the tease from before. Here's the article that I was referring to at this website. And interestingly, the answer to this question is yes. When men stay hydrated, it helps to improve them sexually. But let's first of all look at health and what's the underlying mechanism for this. But essentially, it has to do with circulation. And that's not surprising. So when a man has erectile dysfunction, this could be psychological, but it could be, we often refer to this as the canary in the coal mine, meaning that this could be an indicator that a man is getting ready to have a heart attack, or he's in the early stages of heart disease. This is probably a good time to say I'm not a medical doctor. I'm an inventor, and so I'm not providing any medical advice. If you have erectile dysfunction or any health disorder, please go see your doctor or your healthcare practitioner. And I'm not suggesting that you're going to be drinking water and it's going to cure your heart disease, cure erectile dysfunction. That's not the point. The point is, you may go to your doctor and you may decide to take some kind of medication for treating your ED, but this is a mistake in the sense that you're not addressing the underlying concern. You want to look at this holistically. What's your diet like? Are you drinking enough water? Because this is going to have an effect on blood volume, which will have an effect on circulation. Are you getting nutrients? We've covered this in other webinars, but you can resolve your cardiovascular issues with proper nutrition. So for example, high blood pressure. High blood pressure can be reduced by using magnesium and taurine. Speak with your doctor about that, or see a previous LifeWave Connect that we've done on this subject. So this is all to say that this could be something overlooked. Maybe you go to your doctor, you get a medication for your ED, and it doesn't address the problem. And then the doctor says, well, maybe we need to put you on testosterone therapy. And that could be totally fine. But still, you may be overlooking some of the underlying mechanisms where you should be exercising, getting proper nutrition, drinking enough water, staying away from things that we know are harmful. So this article actually isn't too bad, because it does talk about how water is going to help to improve circulation. And one of the underlying mechanisms as well is improve the ability of the body to make energy. Okay, so that's thought that would be a fun point to bring up, because it's kind of interesting. Now, bringing this back down to earth a little bit, when we think of water, we should also think of the health of our brain and cognition. And not surprisingly, water is going to be beneficial for kids as well. I lived in Georgia in the United States when my kids were very young, and I went to the pediatrician with my daughter, and the pediatrician said, let me see the bottle that your daughter is drinking from. And she looked at it and she saw formula inside. She said, okay. So I had to ask her, well, why were you looking at that? And she said, well, you would be shocked at how many parents give their babies Coca-Cola. And she was right. I was absolutely shocked. And if you want to run an experiment sometime, take some red blood cells under a microscope, add some Coca-Cola, and see what happens. It's shocking, because Coca-Cola contains phosphoric acid, and it causes the cells of the body to shrivel up. It's not very good at all. But not surprisingly here, according to a new study published in the Journal of Nutrition, modulating water intake not only influences hydration among pre-adolescent children, but can also influence certain aspects of cognitive performance. So not surprisingly, you want to keep your kids well hydrated. The same rules are true also for adults. Wayne, the message here is that when people apply the patches, we want them to get absolutely the best results. So the difference between someone having a great experience with the patches and a so-so experience could simply be hydration. Of course, when people have our water machine, the hydration is better than anything they're going to get. But in the meantime, making sure people are getting enough clean water daily, or if they're suffering in pain, using our patches, having a glass of water, something that simple could make the difference between them getting a result or not.
It's truly an incredible innovation, David. And you're right. I commented this is a marketer's dream to have a product that's so far ahead of anything else out there that also has the ability to have such a huge impact on our health and wellness. And I know that it's the dream of anyone also, not just marketers, but anyone that is really interested in having a big impact on their overall health and wellness. Can you talk a little bit more for us about how, with X39, with some of the other patches, in addition to the hydration, how do these products really kind of work in concert together to kind of amplify health benefits?
That's a fascinating subject because I think what I would say is let's look at the goal. So the ultimate goal that we would want to establish is that if we had a product or a series of products that could stop human aging and even preferably reverse human aging, then we could say, okay, we've defined that as a goal. Now, what do we need to do? When we're looking at, and not everyone is going to share that goal, and that's so totally fine, but that's a goal for the company. That would be a benefit that we would like people to have. So when I would look at this like you would look at an orchestra. I love the music from people like Alan Silvestri and Hans Zimmer because they do much of the music for the superhero movies. And you could have, let's say, the theme from Man of Steel, where there's an incredible guitar riff. But if you don't have the drums going along with the guitar and the violin and the cello, it's not going to sound quite right. So this is to say that when we're thinking about having optimum health, we should be thinking about all of those pieces.
我会从其后